Welcome to this episode of the Smart Leaders Sell podcast. I'm Jessica Lorimer, sales coach and leadership expert, and I am really excited to dig down into today's episode. Okay, guys, I am super excited about today's guest because today's guest was somebody who came heavily recommended by you. So when we went out and we said, who would you like to hear from on the podcast? A lot of names came back, but today we are talking to one of the most popular. So Anne Wilson was one of the most popular names to come back off of the questions that we asked you from the surveys around who you'd like to see. And the lovely Susan Hay sparked that. So Susan, if you are listening today, thank you very much for recommending the lovely Anne, who is joining us for the first time on Smart Leaders Sell podcast. Welcome.
Well, it is so cool to be here. And wow, what a great intro. And yeah, let's dive in. And a huge thank you to Susan. What a gem she is.
She really is. Susan is lovely. And I'm really, really excited about today's conversation because, of course, you are, I'm going to say, the woman on the money. And you are all about money, wealth, and those difficult conversations that traditionally, especially here in the UK, we don't really talk about. We avoid money or talking about money kind of like the plague. So tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so my name's Anne Wilson and the brand is called The Wealth Chef because really what it does through my teachings, books, speaking, is I'm passionate about actually bringing money into our everyday life and normalizing it. As you said, it's one of the most taboo topics. People are more than likely to speak about their sex lives on Facebook or Instagram than for us to actually have real and honest conversations about money. And so the challenge is for just about everybody, whether it's the good old Anglo-Saxon roots, but actually most cultures, with this disconnect from money, you end up finding that this is one of the most challenging areas for most people. And I'm passionate, especially also about helping women, because although we've made extraordinary advances in our liberation, in our empowerment, there's still a deep lag around understanding money, managing it, investing it, and actually learning how to get into right relationship with it so it serves us, so we can actually live our fullest, greatest beauty and really be fully expressed. And I use the brand, the Wealth Chef, because it's all about understanding that money is an input. It's an ingredient, but we're not taught about it. We're not taught about our parents, our school, our society. And so, yeah, that is what I'm absolutely passionate about, is just educating, sharing, teaching, so that it no longer is something that enslaves people, but rather really serves them and liberates them and gets in right relationship.
So I love this because obviously, we don't talk about money all that often. And I remember when I was back in corporate, it was a real culture shock for me to go from, university and working in other companies where money wasn't like the key focus. Everyone was very focused on like values and standards and the brand. To go into a company where actually every day, the first thing you asked was, where's the money? Where's the money coming from? Where's the money coming from? And everyone would talk about their salary. They talk about their commission. They talk about their bonuses. They talk about all this stuff. And it was this big culture shock. It was really challenging. And then when I went into my business and came online, it was like having that culture shock all over again, but in reverse, because suddenly nobody wanted to talk about money, right? Everyone's like, oh no, I want to make six figures, but I never want to talk about it.
Yeah. And you've hit the nail on the head, because we have these different parts in our world where in some areas it's spoken about, but even there, often no one can really be sure, is somebody just, is somebody speaking BS? Are they really speaking the truth?
Yeah.
They're hyping up around it. On the internet marketing side and online, you'll see, oh, I'm a 6-figure business, a 7-figure business. But that's what I call marketer maths. It means nothing. And then we have a lot of shame around it. So there's almost these two pillars, these core energies, which I call, the mountains of sort of not enough, or the more monster, which can often take us away. And one of the deep challenges we have, just which either prevents us getting the money in, managing it, keeping it, investing it, is this deep story in our culture that our worthiness and our identity is deeply woven with money. And that is a key area we need to start uncoupling.
Now, I love this because I talk to one of my friends about this all the time. And we talk about not defining yourself by the amount of money you earn, which is easier said than done, right? When you're in the internet marketing world, it's full of people who are like, oh yeah, but you should be aiming. I mean, when I started out 4 or 5 years ago, it was, oh, you need to be aiming to have a 6-figure business. And then it was like, oh no, you're basically nothing unless you have a 7-figure business. And now it's like, oh, if you don't have 9 zeros after your name, then your business is basically done. And, we have this real competitive streak around money, which it seems to me that especially women, we don't like that. We tie that amount of zeros to how worthy we are as a person and how it makes us feel. And sometimes having more money or having less money makes us feel like we are more or less worthy. Is that something that you come across a lot?
Completely. And you've described it beautifully, because this worthiness entanglement is one of the deepest sort of dysfunctional relationships with money. And there's 2 really key things you've mentioned there, which is why most people never actually become financially free. So I'm all about trying to get people to, well, not trying, working damn hard to get people to create financial freedom, which is where they've got assets and investments that can earn money for them. Because from that place, imagine if you can go out to the world and you do the things you love because you want to, you bring that in. Now, there's 2 key things I want to address that you spoke there. One, there's this whole talk about a 6-figure business, 7-figure, a 9 digits. I love that. The challenge there, not only is it misleading and insidious and implies a lot of it almost a worthiness that you've only made it, or your business is only valid if you've hit a certain revenue level. But it's not just that. It also talks to even in people who don't have businesses, who may be employees. And one of the things that keep people away from their wealth is focusing on the inflow. And it's really important to understand this key point. If everybody just goes away from this podcast with this one key thing, you've got to stop focusing on inflow, because inflow is just one input. What matters is what you do with it, how much of that money gets to stay in your life. So on the business side, so many people are focusing on how can I get that bigger revenue, the next contract, more people in, but they're neglecting how they're managing their money in their business. So are they actually creating profit? Jessica, you and I know it's $1 billion business. If you spent $1.5 million to get that inflow, that doesn't mean it's a profitable business. And this is the same when it comes to just income. I know thousands and thousands of people have a certain income level, but they've got no financial well-being. They're deep in debt. Every bit of money that comes in flows out. So they're never actually progressing in true, real wealth. And this is so, so, so important. So I'm so glad we got so juicy early on, because this is the parasitic side. So not only are we focusing on the wrong things, believing that's going to make security or well-being or whatever that driver is, because people have different needs around here, but the bottom line, every single one of us needs financial security, because if you're not secure in this financial area, you cannot pitch up in life fully able to be present. So if we focus on income, whether it's in the business or in our personal life, we're doomed, because it's the wrong metric to be tracking.
So this is really interesting, because I think the online world teaches people just make more money. And it's so easy to just make more money. And as a sales coach, I completely agree with that. I'm like, yeah, of course, you can always go out and make more money. But the shocking thing for me is that one of the exercises I go through with my clients, and one of the things that we've been doing, obviously January, new year, new start, is looking at profit. And so we're looking at what people are selling and how much they're actually getting to pay themselves out of that particular pot. So it's, if you're selling something that's £1,000 or $1,000, but you're only getting to keep $30 or £30 out of it, actually your profit is tiny. And the amount of people who are going ahead, they're selling, lower ticket things, or they're selling, higher ticket level, but their expenses are huge, they're never getting to see that profit to reinvest it in themselves and their own development, or even just retain it and put it towards physical assets like property, or investing into stocks and shares and things like that, that actually will help that financial freedom as they get older and as they decide maybe they do want to keep running a business or they don't.
God, just spot on, Jessica. And this is so key. And I think it's so important that people understand that business or a job, they're just different ways.
Yeah.
Shaming around even having a job in a lot of the entrepreneurial and personal development world and the entrepreneurial world. And so there's your business should be a mechanism, first and foremost, to bring money flowing into your life. Second and foremost, an expression, or that where you can be creative, add value, get joy out of. And so it has to meet that metric. And if there isn't a profit, you've got to understand that. And so this is where it's also so important to decouple the business from our own identities. Just as important it is to decouple money from our sense of self-worth. Because as long as we're believing earn is coupled to our worthiness, we actually burdening money. It can't get on and do what it needs to do. We attach all sorts of meaning and worthiness and baggage onto the back of poor old money, and so we bog it down. And so it can't actually get on and grow and expand. It's a completely neutral entity. So as you said, you've got to then see your business as something separate from yourself. You've got to be focusing on what I say is the back end. As a result of the inflow, then your expenses, what is that profit? And then where does that profit flow? That profit now also has to come out of the business, the separate entity. And equally, then you start building other assets. And that's the only way a business actually becomes an asset, as opposed to just, for many people, a job, just an efficient tax wrapper for a practice. It's not actually a business. And then, as you've rightly said, your investment property, your stocks and shares, all of these are things separate from you, which are meant to serve you and bring money into you. And you've hit on then the next key challenge that I see for so many people is they don't understand the principle of pay themselves first.
Yes. And that's something that's
in terms of the cycle of financial well-being, both from a business to the person, and then from the person in terms of when money comes into their life, what happens with it then, so that they can actually create financial security and financial independence and well-being.
See, and this is super, super interesting, because I think when we talk about financial independence and financial well-being, people assume that, their business, it needs to make more money. And I see a lot of people who make a lot of investments into their business in the hope that they will then achieve financial well-being or financial freedom or independence. And so they're constantly buying different courses, they're spending money on different pieces of software, and they are making things that could be considered investments, because those things hopefully should have an ROI, but then they're not always putting in the work to actually gain the return, and what's happening is they're buying and buying and buying, but because they can't commit the time and the energy required to the money that they've just spent on actually gaining that return, they don't. And so they're seeing, instead of making, really solid investments that are getting a return, that are helping them grow, that are helping them expand, instead they're just creating a lot of unnecessary expense. How can we stop that? How can we understand whether something is genuinely an investment or whether it is just an expense that perhaps we don't actually need to achieve the overall financial well-being or financial independence goal?
Jessica, you've just hit, I'm just loving this, because you've just the key fatal flaws that happen, and then people get frustrated, and then again, they think there's something wrong with them. Instead of stepping back and going, okay, my business is this product that should stand separately. And so one of the things, both in terms of business and in personal life, I always say that your wealth is created at the back door. Whereas people are so focused on the front door, but they neglect the back door. So what am I meaning? In terms of the flow of money, money comes in and money flows out. Comes in as income, revenue in a business, or income in your personal life, and then expenses. When we start looking at our expenses flowing out, not from how can I scrimp and be mean and nasty, but actually with the energy of saying, am I getting value? Because if we truly understand that money value, there's an agreement that we have that there's a certain value. So if people have paid you money, there's been an agreement, there's a value exchange. So do you have the same kind of respect when you exchange money, truly valuing it? Because energetic level or universal level, one of the fundamental beliefs that I know to be true for me and my thousands of clients is money flows to those that value it most. Because if they truly did, they would be more discerning about how quick they were to get rid of it.
This is really interesting, because one of the things, so I remember when I started out in my business and I went from having, a really good 6-figure salary to looking at and budgeting very, very clearly for the first 3 months I was in business, because I wanted to make sure that I could do everything. And then after that, I had this even though my business was making money, we did 6 figures in the first 6 months and it was all great, but I was really, really risk averse. I didn't want to spend any money on anything because I was like, oh my God, like it's just me doing it. And if, you know, if I spend money on this and then suddenly tomorrow my business went under, what would I do? And that made me really quite concerned about, you know, making investments and any additional costs and expenses to my business. And one of the things that I decided to do was put my prices up, which in and of itself, I know that a lot of, you know, people find challenging in their businesses because we get so used to having one rate. We don't always find it easy to justify that rate suddenly being different. You know, I was no different to that. I found it quite challenging. And so one of the things that I stuck up on my bathroom mirror, which drove my boyfriend crazy because post-it notes on bathroom mirrors do not work, like it's just not a thing, was I only charge for the value that I add to others. And for me, that was so important because I was looking at it every single day thinking, yeah, that's right. I only charge the money that I do when I genuinely provide value to others. So as I'm helping other people make more sales, as I'm helping other people grow their businesses to be bigger, as I'm helping other people gain clarity and confidence around selling and how they can really sell with integrity and build relationships, all that kind of good stuff, that is what I'm charging for. And that's where my money is being made. It's being made in a good way, in a way that means I can sleep at night. And that made me feel a lot better about raising those prices.
Yeah, and Jessica, I think that what is so interesting, a lot of people will then say, oh, that's easy, you know, if you're teaching people how to earn more money or this, that, because that's direct. But, you know, I may be in the service industry or I'm a therapist or I help people and it's not so clear. And maybe I, you know, help vulnerable people or sign. And so one of the key things here, I know we've turned back to the revenue, but that is a way we can increase it. So we've spoken about, we really got to have discernment in our business that are going to really get value and have conversation is, am I bringing on this expense because out of fear, out of FOMO, out of fear that, oh, it won't be available later, or hoping that there's going to be some magic bullet that if you have this, you won't have to, you know, implement it or something, you know, like, woo, that'll take that away. But then so there is this real important that back end, and then focusing now on the front end. When we have that discernment, we say, fine, we're really sure that everything flowing out is going to serve, but can also serve, you know, we just want to have consciousness about it.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
So that revenue. One of the things that I know really helps, and it will also help in everybody's, just their business, but also in terms of their ability, is to not focus on the, well, I do a 1 hour session or you know, I'm a massage therapist. It's saying, what is, as a result of person having that service from me, how is their life improved? And really take the time to dig deep. You know, if you're a physiotherapist and through your activity, you help somebody be able to cover the strength to be able to pick up their child, is no longer living in anxiety and fear so they can engage in life more. Like really, really keep going. What is the impact? What is the impact? What is the transformation? Because I think so many people get bogged down by, you know, how many modules or how many sessions do they have or how long is it? Instead of going, as a result of them, if they truly implement, do whatever in their side, how is their life different? Financially, emotionally, mentally, relationships, physically. We can understand that actually that enables us to pitch up fully in life and also be fully filled so we can serve is actually an extraordinary disservice.
100%. I really love what you've said there around it being a disservice if you don't go ahead and you don't look to make income in that way. Because one of the phrases that we use all the time, it's so funny because you've mentioned it there. I use impact and income in my copy all of the time. We're actually running an impact and income weekend intensive in a couple of weeks' time. For that reason is that if you don't feel like you're making an impact on the world, it's very usual that people don't go out and continue to sell because we want to be fulfilled in terms of our own personal fulfillment. How is this making us feel every day? Are we feeling good about getting up and going to work? And if we are, we're way more likely to go out and talk about the things that we're passionate about and therefore sell. And again, if we're not getting paid the income that we deserve, then we start to feel resentful. And actually then your clients get a really bad experience because for whatever reason, they can understand and they can sense, well, actually, you're not necessarily happy to be doing this work and you're not necessarily going to be going all out in terms of the experience that they get and how much energy and time you put into delivering what you need to deliver so that they can get the very best results.
Yeah, and also if we're pitching out into the world financially afraid and feeling insecure, We cannot be fully, and this is so important because so often when we talk about wealth or financial well-being, often people think that's about, flying around the world first class sipping Dom Perignon or having, XY holidays. But what I'm really talking about is financial well-being, where you're not waking up at 3 a.m. wondering how you're going to pay your bills. Or if we got ill, what would happen to us? This is the core. Money weaves through every aspect: security, vitality, then even self-actualization. So when we truly get that, we then understand that if we are not in right relationship with it, if we are not ensuring that our own core well-being is taken care of in terms of this money aspect, then we cannot be fully present with life. It's similar to our health. What's the food we put into our life? It's about the energy and the vitality we need to engage with life. And so when we really understand why it's imperative we start understanding money, and just the thing that I get so frustrated about is we're just not taught this stuff. We're not taught how to manage it in a business sense, but fundamentally in our personal life, really understanding debt, understanding consumer debt versus neutral debt versus expansion debt. Because this comes back to, they said a conversation in investing in ourselves. I'm a huge, huge believer in investing myself. I always have mentors. I've got coaches. I'm in masterminds. And I'm very, very conscious that it's my responsibility that I get value from that investment. But I need to be investing in me and the business. But I see so many people reinvesting in their business and never taking the money out and never creating other assets because they go, oh, no, and I'm reinvesting in my business. I'm growing my business. The challenge is most people don't have businesses. They've got practices. They can't ever sell them. So all they're doing is creating a bigger practice, but they're not actually creating financial stability and security.
Now, I love this because this is super practical. And I think, sometimes, certainly when I've been looking around the online world, people have conversations about money and it's very much about, okay, well, get your journal out, write down how much money you want to make, do that for 6 months, and then hopefully it'll happen. And I love what you're saying about this practical aspect of how do you actually attain financial stability? Because there are certain elements, there are certain things that I believe everybody should invest in outside of their businesses. And, they are things like stocks and shares, and they are things like, even setting up a savings account with cumulative interest, or, going out and having an investment property or things like that. But that seems really far away for a lot of people because people, they're setting up their businesses. They've been told to heavily invest in their businesses, which again, like you, I completely agree with. I have mentors, I'm part of masterminds, all this kind of thing. But taking that money out for something that isn't, they feel directly going to impact their bottom line or their revenue can be really scary. So what do we say to these people who, perhaps thinking, well, actually, I do have some savings. Perhaps I could go and put them into stocks and shares, or I could go and put them into property. But if I do that, I'm not going to be able to join that, countdown mastermind with the countdown timer on the sales page. And, they're going to send me these emails in the next 7 days and I'm going to be terrified.
I'm going to miss out and my life's going to be doomed and I'm no longer worthy.
Exactly.
So excited, Jessica, because we've got into the realm of the world of assets, which I just love and I've learned to love. And the reality is I grew up in a very average, let's call it middle class family. Go, work hard, study hard, get a good job, income, earn. It's the only thing I was taught. Nowhere in my upbringing, my family, my friends, my community, my school, people around me, no one spoke about assets. I didn't know what investing was. And so it's not surprising that it feels like a very scary world. Stocks and shares, investment property, creating low input businesses. And so this is one of the things that I love the most, is teaching people what assets are and why, when you truly understand, assets are the only thing that can give you your freedom. Not income, not your boyfriend, not the government, not your parents. There's no knight in shining armor that's going to sort out this money shit. Whoa, assets. Assets need to become thing. And so we've got to understand that assets are a thing outside of ourselves that can grow in value and or earn income without us having to be involved in the value exchange. So this is really important. And there are 4 asset categories, but there are 3 that are outside of us. One is the stock market. It's understanding that investing through the stock market, all it means is you get a share of great businesses around the world. That's all it is. Investment property, it's something other than your own home, and it's a physical asset, and it could be residential like a home. It could be a shipping container. It could be a storage unit. It's where there's this physical thing that you own or control, that somebody else will use and pay you for the benefit of that use. That's all it is. So there's this other thing. And then you've got low input businesses. It's how do you have a real business where there's systems and processes and other people doing the value exchange, so you are free from it. So you can sit on that beach and have your daiquiri and the money still comes in, or grow other things, because this is the point. You need to have this income and this growth, the wealth generated by something other than you, because that is the only way you'll ever be in a position to be able to have money coming in when you don't want to work, or whether you can't work for some reason, and it's also just about having this choice. So this is the key thing. Once you've understood income's not the solution, it's how much you get to keep, how you manage it and come through that profit. This is the next thing about paying yourself first. Once that money comes into your personal life, you have to create a practice of consistently investing in assets outside of yourself and your business, so that you build up this farm, this tree, whatever you want to call it, of assets that can serve you. And the most important thing is, it's not actually complicated once we start understanding it, but we have to have the self-compassion to just say, most of us were never taught it. So no wonder we don't understand it. It's not because we're stupid or silly or we missed that chip being handed out when we were made. It's just something we're not taught, but it is a learned skill.
See, now I love this, because I think that, and there'll be loads of people listening to this episode going, oh my God, I have no assets. And that's fine, because everyone starts somewhere, right? We don't all, because like you say, we don't learn this. Like, people don't teach this in schools. They don't teach it at university. And the majority of people, even regardless of whether they've got jobs or whether they're entrepreneurs, will not start thinking about this, because everyone is born thinking we're going to live forever, right? We're always kind of at that point of, right, well, we're going to be fine, and we'll start, saving later, or we'll start investing later, or we'll start buying assets later. And unfortunately, later just doesn't seem to turn up all that often, so if you are thinking, I don't have any assets right now, don't worry, but start thinking about how you can get them. What can you put away? And it doesn't mean that you have to suddenly go, I'm going to immediately go out and buy a house tomorrow, or I'm going to go and start saving £5,000 a month. That might not be feasible for you, but whatever you can, start looking at those percentages and think about, okay, well, if this is my total profit coming from my business, what can I put somewhere that is external, so I can start building that financial freedom, so that when I'm not 85, I don't have to go into work every day. I don't have to be running something. I don't have to be seeing, clients every day, or I can literally just sit at home and rest and relax and do what I want to do.
Yeah. And way sooner than that. It's not even just about retirement in 85. It's actually, how much sooner am I giving myself choice? And also giving myself resilience and flexibility. And here's the cool thing, Jessica. I love the stock exchange because it's the easiest asset class for people to start, especially when you're running a business, especially when you're tight for time, because you can set it up in an automated way where you just do regular investing every month, simple, clear, in these juicy things called index trackers. And you can start with 25 quid a month, 50 US dollars, 40 euros, because this is also about breaking one of the beliefs. So many people have this myth that you've got to have a whole lot of money. And that is a thing that is actually going to keep you away from your freedom, because it's actually not the amount you invest. It's not even what you invest in. The habit of consistently keeping money in your life and getting it to work in the form of an asset far outweighs any other strategy. This is shown over and over again. It's about consistency. So it's starting now and then just doing it consistently. And then as you gain confidence, it's like anything, you gain confidence by doing, not by reading more, but by taking action. And when you know you can start with 25 quid, you go, hey, let's use it. This is just experimenting. This is seeing. You're not going, oh, shit, I'm going to be destitute. You start with that. You gain confidence. You go, shit, this is not so scary. Okay, I can increase that to 50. Now I can increase it to 100. Oh, wow. Okay, now, I see. This is juicy. Now I can increase it to that 5,000.
I love that.
Really has a ripple impact on confidence. And ironically, when you actually start keeping some of the money in your life, you're telling yourself and the universe that you are worthy. That you are worthy of keeping some of the money you make, that you're worthy of having investments supporting you. And that impacts significantly a back ripple effect on your ability to actually keep more, earn more. It has this extraordinarily generative ripple impact.
I love that. Thank you so much. Seriously, this has been so interesting because, our poddies, as we call our lovely listeners, are all about trying to build sustainable businesses. And sometimes, it can be really hard to think about building a sustainable business if you don't have an exit plan, or if you don't have a plan for when you're sick or when you're taking time out that is going to consistently generate you income, because we're always so busy thinking about revenue. And for some people who don't want to have like passive income businesses and things like that, that seems like a really far off dream. But here it's sounding super, super simple when we are thinking about simply increasing our asset base, increasing our income and our general financial well-being, as opposed to thinking about let's go out and work out how to scale my business and my revenue to 7 figures in 6 months.
Totally. And that's what, Jessica, although I speak about financial freedom and I help people get very clear on exactly what is their financial freedom number. So it's not some woo-woo vague thing in the sky. It's actually a very grounded things with, zeros and what that number is for you and for me and for everybody else, because I'm like, oh, okay, that's tangible. Mm-hmm. So it's about grounding that. So there is a destination called financial freedom where you've got this big enough pot of assets in terms of value that can earn you that income and pay for your chosen lifestyle forever. And I've been financially free now for 13 years. It's extraordinary. Wow. It's such a gift and what it creates in terms of that resilience and that base. So there is an endpoint, but actually what you covered so beautifully there, financial freedom actually starts, and that freedom away from anxiety, worry, when is enough, will I be able to, that happens immediately that you've got a plan. When you actually know what your destination is and you understand, oh, there's these things called assets and I've got to just manage my money, understand my debt, and there's this pattern and there's a set of actions that you can put in place, most of which you can automate. Suddenly that empowerment, that liberation comes from anxiety and worry, because now it's like, oh, I can see how this all works. Cool, now I can relax. Instead of that ongoing deep anxiety that most of us, live with because we've never been told another way.
I love that. Thank you so much. Seriously, this has been amazing. And I know that there is a second episode. I'm just like, I just know that I'm going to get back on and be like, right, let's talk about this some more. But where can people find you if they want to learn how they can increase their income, how they can really head for that destination of financial freedom and, start exploring things like index trackers, like assets and how they can manage them? Where's the best place for them to find you or get in touch?
Yeah, so head on over to thewealthchef.com, and there's a great page of resources, free resources. There's one on passive investing, that's index tracker investing. There's a masterclass. I've also got a Hay House published book called The Wealth Chef. Fantastic resources there. Get the book and you'll get a 30-day money makeover program with that. You pop over onto the website, and lots of blogs and articles, and again, social media on The Wealth Chef. And I'm often doing lots of free content on YouTube. So dive in, be curious, test different things, because the more we become familiar and immerse ourselves in something, the less scary it feels. And that's how we then can transform our world.
I really love that. Thank you so much. And guys, if you have loved today as much as I have, because it really has been the practical guide to really increasing your own income, whether that is through your business or whether that is all of the other areas of your life that you want to increase your own financial well-being, you head over to thewealthchef.com. Make sure you check Anne out on YouTube, grab the copy of her book, which is amazing, by the way. It is on my shelf, so I thoroughly recommend it. And if you want to share your key takeaway on social media, please do. Please tag Anne, please tag me, and let us know what you learned from today's episode. And on that note, thank you so much, Anne, for being here. You've been absolutely phenomenal. And I can't wait to do another episode all about assets and what people really can do to make themselves wealthy.
Oh, well, Jessica, thank you so much for the extraordinary platform you create and support to people to really live their greatest lives. And I think that's where we have got such commonality, because at the end of the day, that's what money is for. It's an enabler, not an enslaver. So thank you so much. And I can't wait to talk about assets some more.
Thank you. And guys, if you've enjoyed this episode, please make sure you head over onto iTunes, write a little review, and let us know what your key takeaways were over on social media. We'll see you on Monday for another episode.